was awful. Oh, bad. On the 101 freeway.
Are we ready?
Pretty well.
I think we're good, aren't we? Mm-hmm. Okay. We will call to order the July 8th meeting of the Caneo Open Space Conservation Agency. Will you please join me in the salute to the flag?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. May we have the roll call, please?
Chair Bill De La Pena.
Present.
Director Gibson.
Here.
Director Jacobson.
Here.
Director Fox. Absent. Chair Skay.
Here. And we may have Director Fox arriving later, but since there's a fire in Sepulveda Pass that Los Angeles City is involved with, we would certainly excuse him for not being here tonight. Let's see. I don't think we have any public comment cards. Any latecomers here? No? All right. Well, the happy occasion is to go right to a special presentation to commend Elaine Hagan for 20 years of volunteer service. 20. I can't believe it's been that long. Elaine has just been such a stalwart with first the agency as just a volunteer and someone who was so supportive of everything Cosca has done, and was one of the founding members of the Caneo Open Space Trails Advisory Committee, otherwise known as COSTAC. She was the leading light in getting the Trails Education Days going, and back in 1992. Also a long time ago, and has been extremely involved with Trails Education Days, leading it up most years ever since then. She coordinated the program for 17 years. So you have helped educate over 27,000 fifth graders in that time to the benefits of open space and trail etiquette and appreciation of our open space. 27,000, that is astounding. Besides Trails Education Days, Elaine has actively participated in all kinds of other Cosca volunteer programs, including Trail Work Days every year. She's always been there for Trail Work Days, helping get that going. Trail Watch, the Open Space Community Outreach and Resource Stewardship. And beyond that, as her personal interest, she lives in the Wildwood area, and she has been a real tireless volunteer there too, helping with trash removal and restoration projects, and she hikes daily. That's pretty admirable. And has been simply really, it's just hard to characterize in just a short period of time all the great things you have done for the open space of Thousand Oaks and our beautiful Caneo open space system. So Elaine Hagan, come on down to the mic so we can give you a commendation. Thank you. So it is my pleasure to present to Elaine this commemoratory resolution, and it sort of enumerates all the great things you've done, but it's just, again, it's just a précis of all the things you've done for us. And the staff, and on behalf of the staff and the board and all the other COSTAC volunteers, we want to give you a new pair of binoculars.
Oh, that's very nice. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can I get a photo?
Oh, sure.
Get in there, Rose.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much.
And now I think we'd like you to say a few words.
Oh, I'd love to say a few words. Thank you very much. Yes, as Rory said, it's hard to believe that it's been 20 years since COSTAC was instituted. But I have some fun memories of those days, and Mark Langton, who was there at that time, will remember them as well. When the committee first met in the spring of 1989, the original 9 appointees were all slightly wary of each other's motives and goals. But quickly, we appointed Jeff Alexander chairman, and he used his management expertise to create a cohesive unit out of this diverse group of hikers, bikers, and equestrians. And we became truly committed to the multiple use concept and to the concept of working together for the good of all. And I don't think that Lee Laxdal or the other board members from that time had any idea what the committee would become. And it's been an amazing journey, and I've been very proud to be part of what we have accomplished. So after two decades, it's time to leave and to give someone else the opportunity that I had to serve. And I'll continue to work on COSTAC programs, and I'll remain on the foundation board, and I'm not going far. So thank you all, thank you very much, and thank you for the support that you've given COSTAC programs and that you've given me over all these years, especially all your direct involvement with Trails Education Days. So thank you again.
Thank you, Elaine. A remarkable record. Well, you better come right on back, because now it's time for the Trails Education Day writing contest report.
I wasn't going far. So, first, I wanted to remember some history. The writing contest came to be because Director Fox wanted to expand the awareness of Trails Education Days. And without his interest in the program and the financial support provided by his community foundation back in the early days, it's unlikely that the contest would ever have come into being. So I wanted to thank him for that. And I think we've been running the contest for about 12 years. I can't remember precisely, and I've lost the early records, so I'm not sure. But Andy would remember the first year, he and two other judges read every single entry, and they came through that experience with spinning heads and strained eyes. So we very quickly changed the way we managed the contest. Now Mulaney Ashen manages the details, and she divides the entries we receive among 8 or 10 volunteers for a first reading. Then the best 10% from each school are judged by a panel of 8 retired school teachers who choose 5 grand prize winners overall and 2 winners from each participating school. This year, the numbers, 1,560 students attended from all 20 elementary schools, and 990 letters were submitted from 18 schools. That's almost as many as we've ever received. So there's more and more participation each year. And you all have seen copies of the winning letters, and some of you had the opportunity to meet some of the winners when they were honored at the City Council and the board and the CRPD board meetings last month. The contest prize money, which totaled $1,400 this year, was provided by the Conejo Open Space Foundation. Grand prize winners were honored both at City Council and CRPD board meeting, as I mentioned. And once the judging was completed, all 990 letters were forwarded to the volunteers and staff members to whom they are addressed. I think the letters are a significant reason that our volunteers come back year after year, and I think the contest is a significant reason that we get so many letters. And now that Director Fox is here, I just want to say again that I was remembering the early days with the contest, and I thank you for essentially your support made it possible. Because without the money and without your sort of encouragement to provide more publicity for Trails Education Days, I don't think we would have ever come up with the idea. But also I was remembering that the first year you did all the judging, so a lot of reading. Anyway, thank you all again. It's been a great pleasure, and like I said, I'm not going far.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
And I had the pleasure of signing all the thank you letters that Elaine and the volunteers put together for all the volunteer hike leaders and rangers and council members and CRPD folks, and our own staff were hike leaders. So there are literally, I'm guessing, about 150, 200 thank you letters that were also put together and collated with some of the thank yous that the reports that the kids wrote that were specific to that hike leader. And it's just so heartwarming to read them. But beyond that, every year I'm more and more amazed at the how articulate and well-spoken and informed these fifth graders are. They write great letters, whether they're typed or handwritten in pencil. Some of them have little pictures. Some of them that seem, really almost college application quality, and others are clearly fifth grade. But the sentiment in each and every one of them is great. It definitely makes Trails Education Days something that we want to try and keep continuing forever and ever. A great project. Thank you so much, Elaine. Director Bill de la Pena.
I would like to comment on the letters themselves, and as the chairwoman mentioned, they are becoming better year after year after year. It is just simply amazing how beautifully they describe their field trip. When I think that we have an 11-year-old or 10-year-old that says something like, "The trees were like Mother Nature swooping down to give me a great big hug," that is just so descriptive. I can't believe they're 10 or 11 years old. So these are all just beautifully written essays, and it must be very difficult to pick the best out of so many. So you've done a wonderful job. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let's go on to the consent calendar, and that's the minutes of our May 13th meeting. Any changes or additions? Consent calendar moved. Seconded. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Consent calendar passes. Okay, we will go on now to the 7A, which is the updated priority list of areas for potential purchase as open space. Ms. Ford.
Thank you, Chair Skay, and good evening, members of the board. I'll direct your attention to the screen for a PowerPoint presentation. As you remember, on May 13th, the board held a public workshop to consider updates to our priority list of areas for potential purchase as open space. This list provides a framework for the decisions related to open space purchases in the Conejo Valley. As I described at the workshop, the original Cosca priority list was approved by the board in 1996 and has been updated approximately every 4 years since then, and was last updated in 2004. Based on the public comments that we received at the workshop, as well as board direction at the workshop, staff has added 3 new areas to the 2009 priority list. We've added 2 large parcels totaling 150 acres, and they were added to the existing Area I, which is the Westlake South area. We added a new Area W, which is called the Conejo Mountain area. That consists of 2 large parcels totaling 550 acres, and that's adjacent to the existing Area M, the Vallecito area. At the last meeting, we originally recommended to add those 2 large parcels to the Vallecito area, but comments at the board meeting, at the workshop, led us to create it as its own separate area, Area W. We also added new Area U, which is called Simi Hills area, and which is one 11.5 acre parcel. I've got some, I'm sorry. This is a map showing those areas that we added. They're shown in purple. Area W, the new Conejo Mountain area, is over here on the west. The added portions of Area I are down here. The small Area U is in this location here. And I guess that's it. This is an aerial photo showing the 2 large parcels that comprise the new Area W. It's this parcel here as well as this parcel here. This is the Vallecito Mobile Home Park, and the existing Vallecito area are these two parcels here. Photo showing the Caneo Mountain area. This is Caneo Mountain, and our area comprises the side of this mountain and some land back in here to the west of Vallecito Mobile Home Park. Map showing the new Area U. This is Canaan Road, and this parcel here is the new area. There is a water tank on the parcel, and the area proposed for potential purchase as open space would be the remainder of the parcel, not including the water tank. This is what that hillside looks like from Canaan Road looking north. It's this hill that you see right here. This is the expanded Area I, Westlake South. The existing parcels in Area I are these two large parcels here, and we have added this large parcel here and a slightly smaller parcel here, so the area is now four parcels. And this is a photo showing Area I. We also divided the existing Area D, the Sunset North area, into two separate areas to reflect the differences between those two parcels. And this was based entirely on comments and board direction at the workshop. The easternmost parcel in Area D remains Area D, and the western parcel, we created a new area, V, which is, we're naming the McRae area, and that is the YMCA parcel. This is the Area V McRae, the YMCA parcel. Moore Park Road here surrounding the parcel. This is looking west. And the remaining parcel in Area D, Sunset North, is this hillside that you see here. This is the 23 freeway, also looking west. So the draft 2009 priority list contains 17 areas and a category called Trail Crossing Improvements and Access. The list is comprised of 14 existing areas from the 2004 list. As I mentioned, we expanded one area, added 2 new areas, and created a new area from splitting an existing area. This map shows in red. This is the draft final 2009 priority list. As I discussed at the workshop, the areas are sorted into 3 priority groups. And the priorities are based on the open space resource value, the degree of protection expected through the development review process, as well as the likely expected purchase cost. And in your packet, we've provided the rankings for the new areas and the newly divided areas. I'm not going to be discussing them, but feel free to ask questions. This map shows the rankings of the areas. The high priority, priority 1, is in red. As you can see, the new Caneo Mountain area is high priority. The Broome addition is high priority. The Southern Ridge and the Area D, as well as the Skyline and Caneo Ridge areas. Medium priority is shown in orange, and I do apologize, it may be difficult to tell the orange from the yellow on this screen. And then the yellow is low priority. Vallecito, Area M is low priority, as well as the new Area U, Simi Hills. This chart shows all of the areas in Priority Group 1. You can see that totals 985 acres and is made up of 357 parcels. As I mentioned last time, the Southern Ridge and the Skyline areas have, as you can see, Southern Ridge has 315 parcels. They're very, very small and less than, well, about approximately 1 acre per parcel. Priority Group 2 totals 634 acres, comprised of 14 parcels. And Priority Group 3, 120 acres and 6 parcels. Priority Group 3 are the parcels that we believe are likely to be adequately protected through the development review process, but if they become available at low cost, for example, through a tax sale, they would be appropriate for purchase. So the overall total of the 2009 priority list is 1,742 acres and 377 parcels. As I have mentioned, the list acts as a guide for future potential open space purchase, but in order for a purchase to occur, of course, the purchasing agency needs to approve of that purchase. There needs to be a willing seller and, of course, an adequate funding source. Staff has estimated on a very rough back-of-the-envelope type calculation that the cost to purchase all of the priority 1 and 2 areas on the list is about $64 million. The primary source of funding for open space purchase is the city's Open Space Endowment Fund. The current balance in that fund is approximately $1.3 million. Other sources have been used on occasion to augment the Open Space Endowment Fund or to purchase smaller parcels. These include the Cosca Trust Fund, which is a fund controlled by the Cosca Board and funded through licenses for wireless facilities on existing structures on Cosca property. Occasionally we have used grants to supplement purchases. As well, in the past, development agreement funds, including the Chappelle and the Dos Vientos Ranch development agreement funds, have been used for small purchases. Those funds are accumulate fees from development agreements and can be used for capital project purposes, including open space is one of many uses those funds can be used for. The list assists the City Council and the Cosca Board in evaluating whether proposed open space purchases merit the allocation of funds, because as we've seen, there are the parcels are far more valuable than the funds available. However, as well, other areas may be considered for purchase in the future, and the list is not meant to exclude other opportunities if they do arise. Staff recommends that the board approve the revised 2009 priority list for potential purchase for public open space. I'm available for questions.
Thank you, Ms. Ford. Are there questions? Director Bill de la Pena.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I only have one question regarding the area L. That is 22 acres. I was wondering, is that the area that is really part of the 2,000-acre property, but we're interested only in this snippet of this area? Why just that little bit?
We did that. You're right. It is part of a much larger parcel, and the areas within our list are within the city's jurisdictional boundary or planning area or the CRPD jurisdictional area. So the rest of that parcel is far outside of any of Cosca's jurisdiction, based on the city and CRPD jurisdiction. So they are not on our list.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Director Gibson.
Yeah, Kristen, I was glad to see you split Area D, although I'm still concerned, and I as to why we created a new Area V, because I think it's unnecessary with the YMCA property. That property is deed restricted to be a YMCA and no other use. And if any other use happens, then it reverts back to the McCrae family. So there's I believe, adequate protections in place for that to happen. At worst case, if we want to continue it on the list, I would move it to a low priority, because nothing's going to happen with it. There is no development potential on that property. Even the YMCA's development program that they've looked at over the last several years concentrates all their development up around their pool area and everything else, not on the hillsides and what we're looking at. So, I would, either like to see that property moved off the list or moved to a low priority.
I'll provide a few comments on that. Currently, we have, staff has recommended that it be ranked as a medium priority. There are a couple of different reasons why we decided to make that recommendation. Certainly, the board is welcome to direct us to change that. Ms. Austin, I know, has a couple of comments, but just initially, I do understand there's a deed restriction. In the open space protection business, we think in terms of perpetuity, and if not re-recorded, my understanding is that deed restrictions expire in 30 years. So while from the original placement of the deed restriction, so I'm not sure how long that's been, or if it's been re-recorded, or if the McRae family plans to re-record that. But at some point, deed restrictions are not permanent if they are not continuously recorded. I had one other point, but I'll let Ms. Austin say her comment.
A couple of other reasons why it was ranked in the medium category was that it's highly visible from Moore Park Road, and there is some potential for public trail access up to Vista Point, and it is possible habitat for rare and endangered plants. So that was sort of how it became medium priority, but I think that your points are valid too. So
yeah, I mean, the property has been in the YMCA's position for about 36 years. And I think if we need to, we can get a letter off to Wyatt McRae to say if they need to renew that, then they can renew that, and it's good for another 30 years. So I think there are mechanisms without purchasing that property to either, again, if not remove it from the list, move it to a low. Because in all practicality, and I understand open space wants to be a perpetuity, let's talk about practicality here. It's not going to be developed. So.
Other comments or questions from board members? Director Jacobson.
You may not be able to do so now, but looking at K, which is the multiple number of parcels and so forth, is it possible for you to review and indicate to us how often these are coming to us through tax encumbrances and so forth? In other words, obviously, they're not usable properties by virtue of the limited size and what have you. Therefore, people have no opportunity to utilize the site. They have no investment value and what have you. Do those come to us routinely as part of a tax encumbrance procedure initiated by the county on delinquent taxes?
We have in the past acquired a number of parcels in that area through tax auction, and the Cosca staff does continue every year. We always monitor the Ventura County Tax Assessor's auction list, so we are always watching for new opportunities. In addition, we do know that there are some property owners in that area who have been working at aggregating the parcels themselves. So at such time as they may choose to sell them, they may be available in bulk. Some of them, certainly not all of them. There are many individually owned parcels still remaining, but there may be opportunities for some parcels, multiple parcels owned by single owners. But it is a challenging area. We do continue to monitor the tax auction lists.
By and large, they're unusable. They have no access, and they're restricted, and they're minimalist in size and so forth. So the people evidently, maybe hope springs eternal, but nothing's ever going to happen. Thank you.
Any other comments? Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to move approval of the staff recommendation.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any other discussion on the motion? Director Gibson.
Yeah, I would ask the maker of the motion if they would consider modifying the motion to move parcel V, the new created parcel, to a low priority.
Thank you for the opportunity. we have so many parcels on this list, and we know as an agency that we're probably not going to be able to purchase everything. We simply don't, unless we win the lottery. And then we might be able to purchase everything. But simply because something is on a work sheet or work list, I should say, does not mean it will be purchased. And I don't think that any economic harm or any other harm would be done to the property owner of that particular parcel, nor can we guarantee that nothing will ever be built in the future. So I think it's just to have as a safety net to put it on that list. So I would kindly reject your offer, but certainly welcome you if you want to vote on it separately.
Well, let me just chime in. The motion right now is the motion to approve as recommended.
Correct.
The recommendation as presented by staff. So that's the current motion.
Yes.
Just to make sure we're all clear.
Yes, thank you. And I will speak to the motion. I will definitely support the motion, and I understand your concerns, Director Gibson. I agree that it's highly unlikely that there's any threat to that parcel. However, just to be true to our evaluation process, since we have a ranking process, I can see why it came up high, and I think we should stick with that. And unfortunately, I've had experience with nonprofits, not the Y necessarily, except in one instance, in another city, that nonprofits sometimes have run into extremities and aren't able to hold on to a property. So between that and deed restrictions not necessarily being forever, I think it just sort of, sets a good framework here that shows that is an important parcel, and obviously we'll be working with the Y if for some reason in the future they do have any interest in providing a trailhead or a mutual use or even a dedication if they are allowed to do that under their current deed restriction, which I assume is in effect. So I do support the motion. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposition? Aye. Thank you. And so that was unanimous? Yes. Thank you, sir. All right, thank you all. Let us then go to item 7B, which is the authorization to accept a donation of a .06-acre parcel on Montclef Ridge from Michael and Charlene Dubin, located approximately 1,000 feet northeast of the northern terminus of Briar Bluff Circle. Ms. Austin?
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board. I'll direct your attention to the PowerPoint presentation. The subject property for donation is located approximately 1,000 feet northeast of the northern terminus of Briar Bluff Circle. It's north of Campus Drive, as you can see on the exhibit there, and Lynn Road, which is south of the exhibit, and west of CLU's North Campus. It's the last remaining parcel needed to complete the 42-acre Montclef Open Space Preserve. The parcel's only .06 acres, or approximately 2,600 square feet in size. It contains mature coastal sage scrub vegetation and is adjacent to existing contiguous open space on the north, south, and east sides. There are no trails or improvements on the property, and no trails are planned for this property. Here's an aerial shot of the property. The property is in red, and you can see Wildwood open space to the northwest and Montclef open space to the east and north. Cosca, the city, and CRPD have made a concerted effort over the past 20 years to protect the Montclef open space, which now totals approximately 42 acres in size. In 2003, the city purchased a 4.4 acre parcel, which is shown as Parcel 1 in Exhibit A of your packet and displayed on the screen also as Parcel 1. This parcel is to the south of the subject donation, and it was purchased from Michael and Charlene Dubin. The Dubins retained the .06 acre piece of property from the northwest corner of the original property for potential access purposes to the properties that they also owned to the north. In 2006, the city purchased 3 of the 4 vacant parcels, which are shown as parcels 2 through 4 on Exhibit A of your packet, and on the screen also as parcels 2 through 4. And these are to the north of the subject property and required a conservation easement over 50% of the 4th parcel. These actions protected 22 acres of land that are a key part of a large wildlife corridor. And these properties were purchased using city funds and grants from the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy as well as the Cosca Trust Fund. As a result of the 2006 purchases, the .06 acre remnant parcel that's the subject of this report is no longer needed for access purposes to the northern parcels. The Dubins are now willing to donate the parcel to Cosca as open space. The estimated maintenance costs for this donated parcel are minimal. And in conclusion, the proposed donation will complete a 20-year multiple agency effort to create and protect the Mount Clef open space. With the board's approval, staff will draft the deed and work with property owners to transfer the property to Cosca. And staff recommends board authorization for the board secretary to accept this donation. And I'm available for questions.
Are there questions from Ms. Austin? What's the board's pleasure? Director Gibson moves approval. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by, we'll give it to Mr. Fox. Thank you. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Any abstentions? Thank you. It passes unanimously. Good. Only .06 acres, but it's important. .06.
Something.
Let's go to 7C, which is reauthorization of appropriations from the Cosca Trust Fund for Good Neighbor Program implementation. Ms. Ford.
Thank you, Chair Skay. Have a PowerPoint presentation. On March 14th, 2007, the board approved Cosca's Good Neighbor policy. This policy governs relationships at the open space urban interface, including encroachments. At the same time that the board approved the Good Neighbor policy, the board also authorized appropriations from the Cosca Trust Fund to help resolve encroachments onto Cosca open space. Up to $70,000 a year was authorized for 2 years, and that was the FY08, fiscal year 08 and fiscal year 09 for encroachment resolution purposes. The $70,000 figure is under the annual income into the Cosca Trust Fund. Therefore, it does not draw from the corpus of the fund, just uses the income into the fund. The current Cosca Trust Fund balance is approximately $900,000. Unfortunately, staff faced challenges in spending the $70,000 a year that the board approved. After the Good Neighbor policy was approved in 2007, the Cosca manager position was vacant for approximately 7 months. And after the new Cosca manager, myself, got up to speed, the economy had been heading downhill in the city, implemented a selective hiring policy which restricted our ability to create a new staff position. At that time, staff worked with the city attorney's office to develop an encroachment resolution externship program with Pepperdine Law School. And at no cost to Cosca or to the city, law school interns assisted staff in building the foundation for our encroachment resolution efforts. However, this encroachment externship program is not a substitute for a paid staff person to help out. Because of recent events, Cosca now has an opportunity to obtain encroachment resolution assistance from a city code compliance officer. A portion of an existing city employee's time will be allocated to Cosca. In order to pay for this, staff recommends request reauthorization of the $70,000 a year for the next 2 years, which would be this fiscal year 10, and fiscal year 11, to cover these salary costs. And in case it wasn't clear before, we did not spend any of the original total of $140,000 authorized by the board 2 years ago. This additional staff assistance will allow Cosca to rigorously pursue resolution of our backlog of encroachment cases. So staff recommends that the board authorize the expenditure of up to $70,000 per year for the next 2 years from the Cosca Trust Fund for additional staff support for the encroachment resolution program.
Questions? Dr. Gibson?
Yeah, Kristen, a couple questions. You said the revenue into the fund is approximately $80,000 per year. What's the source of the $80,000 that comes in every year?
The $80,000 is from a variety of site license agreements for wireless facilities on Cosca open space.
So it's pretty dependable then?
It has been very dependable. There are cost of living increases built in, but it's been quite stable.
Okay. With regards to the externship program, is that still are we still doing that at all?
We will do it probably at the beginning of the fall period. Right now, Pepperdine Law School is out of session.
Right.
So we do and plan to invite other law students back to assist us with.
And how successful was that program in assisting us?
It was, I think it was very successful. It was successful for me in the sense to be able to work with law students and to assist them in learning a new avenue, a new area.
Were we able to resolve any of these enforcement issues, or?
At this time, most of it was dealing with actually prepping for the final notices going out to people. So that's pretty much what the prep has been doing, was done at that time.
Okay, and the position that we would probably fill this, would it do the same kind of work, or would it
actually much more investigation, more code compliance, more investigation, obtaining the facts. Just due to the timing, we weren't able to do some of the mediation aspect that we anticipated with externships at this last year.
Okay. And as I understood this is not a new position. We would fill this with time available from city code enforcement staff?
That's correct. We would, these funds would be used to pay for a portion of the salary of an existing city code compliance officer.
Okay.
But if I just may jump in there, to be clear, he is going to be dedicated to this particular job. Right,
understand. And I know we're just venturing into this code compliance, program. And I don't know why we allocated 2 years in the past. I'm not one that likes to spend money. You'll soon to find out. Why don't we do this 1 year at a time and come back to the board if we find that it's highly successful or we don't need this or whatever after a year? I mean, I would be willing to support a year. I don't know what the rest of the board would be doing, but why couldn't we do this 1 year at a time?
Do you have a 2-year budget?
Mm-hmm. The city does do a 2-year budget.
That's fine. We're not the city, though. Okay, we don't have to do it 2 years at a time.
Based on our knowledge of cases that we are aware of, we believe that it may take a full 2 years, at least significantly more than 1 year, to wade through the backlog. We do believe that once we can resolve a lot of the cases, and so that the new cases are just coming in on a as new cases arise, then the staff time needs will be significantly decreased. So the 2 years is our estimate of how long it may take to get through all the cases that we are aware of.
Because I'm also a believer that, let's not get into a program where we now create another, quote, full-time position here at Cosca that's got, that, using your term before, becomes in perpetuity. I could support 1 year, but I can't support 2 years. So that's my comment.
If I may just add, in my experience with the cases and with prior code compliance, handling code compliance cases, some cases just depends on what happens during the case development, and there are delays that are done by the court, by the parties, And so certainly I can see these cases going for sure 2 years.
And I understand, and we can come back a year from now and allocate more money. So.
All right.
I'm sorry. I was just going to add, just from a standpoint of the city's own budget and my department's budget, because this is a personnel that's assigned within my department, and we do operate on a 2-year basis, and it's integrated with the rest of our budget, and we really not want to get into a situation where we've got it for 1 year and then have to come back and maybe we don't have it for another year, and then the city goes off into the city realm to scramble around with the city council to try to find other resources to pay that position. So, and I do believe that...
And all good comment on that. That's not good fiscal management. For us to fund a position just for 2 years because the city doesn't want to look at funding it if we don't have the money. So, that's just not good fiscal management.
Do you want to continue, Mr. Prescott?
Well, the only other comment I wanted to make was that this, as Ms. Ford pointed out, is that this is an extremely stable and reliable revenue source based on long-term lease agreements that we have with the cellular companies. And I think we've pointed it out whenever we've had the opportunity that Cosca is moving from a land acquisition mode to a maintenance mode. The amount of open space that's come under Cosca management has significantly expanded over the years. The staff has not expanded. We are under stress both in our department with our Cosca staff and with the field staff that the Canal Recreation and Park District provides. And this is really an extremely important part of what Cosca is supposed to be doing, and that is to protect and manage the assets that are under our jurisdiction. So it's an extremely, in my view, extremely wise expenditure of this money. It's within the resources that we have available. Cosca, if you look at it on a per acre basis as compared to other open space agencies, really is extremely lean. The amount of money that our open space program here in Thousand Oaks costs in relationship to the acres that we manage, and we did the research about a year ago, is much less than other agencies, and it's really a critical part of fulfilling Cosca's mission to devote these resources. And if you don't do it now, in fact, it's gone on so long, it's going to be hard to do. I think we have about 160 cases that we're going to be dealing with right off the bat. I envision actually that this is going to go longer than 2 years, and I think we'll probably be back here. If the board decides a year from now, we'll be back a year from now. If the board agrees with the staff recommendation, we'll be back 2 years from now, probably asking for a further extension of it. And, of course, it's within the board's judgment because it is Cosca money. It's not city money. It's not CRPD money, but it's, I think, a really essential investment and commitment we need to make now.
Okay. Director Bill De La Pena has the floor, and then Director Jacobson.
Thank you. Mr. Prescott already answered one portion of my question, namely how many cases do we have, and it's 160. And I'm just thinking, if this sort of enforcement is not happening now, it kind of makes the ordinances which we recently adopted obsolete and moot points. And if we're not able to enforce our own ordinance, then we might as well forget about them. But I was just wondering about using another person from our code compliance department. And the assistant city attorney said that that person will be fully dedicated to Cosca. What sort of strain, if any, will that put on the other cases that the city will have to deal with?
Actually, it's a half time of the position, so half of the officer's time would be allocated to Cosca, the other half to the regular city code compliance activities. As you might be aware, one of our code compliance officers was on assignment as exactly in yes, I believe he was in Iraq the whole time. I think another gentleman was in Iran. Serious code enforcement. So he has returned and is now back to full speed with our code compliance activity. So we can absorb the workload. the city does have policies that the city council adopted vis-a-vis code enforcement, and that tends to help us manage the workload that we get. Also, most people in Thousand Oaks are really proud of the city they live in, and try to take care of their property and try to adhere to the ordinances, and we will. We'll be able to maintain the level of service now that we have our other employee back. And I just think that, from a balance standpoint, the maintaining our open space is as important as maintaining the built environment of the community. So that's why we're able to allocate some of those resources.
Director Jacobson.
You've touched on the concern I had, which was based upon the comment under the conclusion of backlog of cases of apparent encroachment. And I don't want to get into micromanagement of the staff, but could there be maybe a statusing of the work underway as to the potential number of cases that there are? After all, we've had 30-some years, and only within the last 2 years have we become involved in what obviously must have been a problem for a very extended period of time. And if that is so, I guess the question isn't whether we're going to spend $70,000 a year, but are we going to spend or have a need to spend some additional amount over and above that, for what period of time? And if we had, and thank you for that piece of information on the number of cases that apparently are before you, but that is out of how many potential cases of encroachment? Do we have 300,000, 3,000, of which you have these several hundred that have already materialized? Could you give us some idea as to the scope of this project? And I understand the benefit in protecting our community, but I guess the question is the cost worth the increased effort or the existing effort, or should it be phased in on selectively certain parcels that represent the biggest encroachment problem and impact upon the community?
Let me I think I have to stop that as far as we're kind of getting off the topic of what's on the agenda tonight. That's kind of really going past what's on the agenda for this particular topic. Right now, the agenda item is, do you want to approve this additional funding from 2 years ago and reassert it for the next 2 years? As far as, and I'll just touch briefly on it, as far as the number of cases we have, the 160, I think, is an approximation of how many cases we have. But once staff thinks that we need to report back, obviously we're going to report back to inform you of the status of what's happening and what we're doing. But as far as for the agenda item tonight, we have to stick with what is on the agenda.
But it's on the agenda as a dollar expenditure for services rendered, and I think we need to say the services are rendered in some mechanism and through some procedure in order to say that we want to continue it for 1 year, for 2 years, higher level, lower level, and I think therefore it becomes attendant to making a decision as to the appropriateness of the conclusion.
Other comments from board members or questions? I'm sorry, Ms. Ford, did you have?
I do have one comment in response. Director Jacobson made a comment as to this has clearly been going on for a number of years, and we've only become aware of it in the past couple of years. I should point out that the city only obtained aerial photos on our GIS system in 2003. And until you have aerial photos and can take a look at how the property boundaries fall in relation to structures or other improvements on the ground, it's very difficult to detect encroachments, to tell where the property boundary is, because the property boundaries are very rarely ever marked on the ground. So the city's GIS system with the photos that came into effect in 2003 really helped the program. Cosca had an intern that helped at the time, looking at surveying the whole city through the aerial photos and noting any potential cases where it looked like structures or other features extended onto Cosca's property line. And we do have that database. When a number of cases is discussed, we should be clear that that is the cases in our database. They are not actual cases that are involved in any kind of active litigation or any kind of contact. We are aware of them, but they are not actual legal cases, if you would want to say it, at this point.
I appreciate your comments, and when I was stressing the importance of this years ago, that was exactly one of the reasons for being pleased about the action taken by staff and the board. And so would you be able to at some time status through, I mean, if it's litigation, then it may be that it would be through closed session or something, but would you be able to alert us of the potential here as to resolution of a problem that we've identified?
As always, if we can and will, we will provide information as the staff thinks is appropriate and we can do legally, whether it's through closed session or not closed session, open session. We will do that. I hesitate when I didn't mean to cut you off, but it was more of, obviously we talked about 160 cases, and we've talked about, we have a number of them. I made the comment that, do I think we have enough work for 2 years? And I think I made that point that I think we do. So that's my point. I just wanted to avoid going off tangent with what is on the agenda. But certainly we will present information that we think is appropriate, even from the City Attorney's Office, to the board if it needs to be acted upon.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Director Gibson?
Yeah, I just want to clarify my point. My opposition is not with the position; it's with the term. My agency has a 2-year budget too. I'm not looking at it from that standpoint. But as we're looking, at how successful this can be in the term and what we're getting for our money a year from now, then I could support a year. And if it's working well, then come back and let's support it for another year if there's things we need to look at. So that's my only objection, is the 2-year term. So.
Thank you, Director Gibson. Director Fox?
I'm ready to make a motion. Okay, I'm going to move the staff recommendation. I think there's 3 points, and I think the discussions have been good relative to maybe some things that we may look at in subsequent meetings. But I think the staff has done a good job in articulating the 3 points that that are really salient to this discussion. First is there a need, and there's unanimity on the board that we need this service, or we need to be doing this, because it kind of flies in the face if there isn't some enforcement component, and staff did a good job of letting us know that it's been relatively recently through aerial photos that we've become aware that it would be my sense that sometimes people are in violation and they don't even know it. And just as a reminder, this is kind of a mediation or a conflict resolution position. If we're in litigation, that's not this position. That's the City Attorney's Office. So the service, I think, is something that we need. The second issue that we would look at is there a funding source and a dedicated funding source? And we have that. I think we've allocated it 2 years ago. The funding stream is a reliable funding stream. And then the third issue is the ongoing issue, and I think that's what Director Gibson has brought up. I think staff has sufficiently addressed 2 points. One is there's more than enough work for 2 years. 162 cases, the ones you know about. Just in looking at the normal work week, and it's a part-time job because this is going to be done by a code enforcement person who's going to be doing city issues. Plenty of work. I think the city attorney indicated that it's probably even more than a 2-year cycle, what we're looking at. And then secondly, while I understand we could come back and allocate it, there is a reality of budgeting with respect to Mr. Prescott's department. And unless we thought that there wasn't enough work for 2 years, then I think the 1 year makes sense. But we have staff, and I haven't heard really any objection, that there is probably more work here than even 2 years. My sense is I think we're going to be doing this for probably maybe 4 or 5 years, and through public education, hopefully we'll reduce the number of violations that we have, and maybe we allocate some of the dollars that we're using for the position down the road 4 or 5 years from now in a better public education program, so we're not doing the enforcement, we're educating the public. But for the near future, 3-4 years, I think we're going to have to be dealing with this. And so I just think the recommendation makes sense. I think the discussion has certainly added value, but I think staff's done a good job of articulating and answering the concerns. And so with that, I'm going to move the recommendation.
Right, do we have a second? Seconded by, go ahead.
Yeah, I second the motion. And basically what I would like to stress, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I think this is a two-pronged approach. We are doing public education simultaneously with the enforcement. So hopefully then we will resolve this issue sooner than later. But obviously I will be in agreement with staff recommendation and the motion.
Okay. Any other discussion on the motion? Director Gibson?
Yeah, I'm not going to support the motion just for the funding reason. I think it ought to be a 1 year at a time.
Thank you. Any other discussion? If not, please vote. All in favor of the staff recommendation, please say aye. Aye. Opposition?
Opposed?
Any abstention? Okay, that passes 4-1. Thank you. We will now go to the proposed fee schedule for commercial filming and photography on Cosca open space. So now we're on the revenue side. Go ahead, Ms. Ford.
Thank you, Chair Skay. We have a PowerPoint presentation. Thank you. As the board will remember, on May 13th, 2009, the board adopted Cosca Ordinance Number 01-2009. Section 241 of the ordinance, entitled Filming and Commercial Photography, states that the Cosca Board shall assess a fee for the use of Cosca property for commercial filming or photographic purposes. So in order to comply with this portion of the ordinance, staff set about determining what Cosca's filming fees should be. Staff performed a market survey of the filming fees charged by similar open space and park agencies throughout California. And through that process, which I should point out is in your staff packet on page 59, we have provided a comparison chart showing the fees charged by other agencies. The chart is too complicated to present in a PowerPoint slide, but you can take a look at it on page 59. We determined that the fees that CRPD charges for filming appear to be in line with those charged by other agencies. It seems to be kind of right in the middle. There's quite a bit of variability in the fees, and CRPDs generally run right down the middle and seem quite reasonable. So because of that, the staff recommends that Cosca's filming fees mirror CRPD's fees with the addition of a variable security deposit. So Cosca staff are proposing that the Cosca fees differ from CRPD fees in only one way. This proposed security deposit would be determined on a case-by-case basis by either the Cosca manager, the CRPD park superintendent, or their designee. And this deposit will help to ensure that filming sites are returned to their natural condition after the end of filming. And the security deposit would be approximately equal to staff's estimate of what it may take to restore the site. If you will note, the Cosca ordinance states that filming will not be allowed if it will cause permanent damage to open space resources. So there is, it's up to staff's discretion to determine to approve any given film permit request, and there may be some area within which limited modification of resources may occur if staff determines that with restoration the site can be returned appropriately to a natural condition. And the MRCA and the National Park Service, the MRCA is Mountains Recreation and Conservation Authority, and the National Park Service do require similar security deposits, where National Park Service refers to it as a bond. So the proposed Cosca filming fees are as such. For still photography, we propose an $85 non-refundable processing fee, and a ranger fee at $42.50 per hour. That would be on a cost reimbursement basis based on the number of hours a ranger is needed to supervise or be present for filming. The site use fee, which is the fee for the use of the Cosca property, would be $110 a day, and this is just for commercial still photography. And there are cancellation fees described in the attachment A. These fees are laid out in attachment A of the resolution, and I should note that there was a supplemental packet with a revised attachment A. For commercial motion picture filming, again, an $85 non-refundable processing fee, the same hourly ranger fee of $42.50 an hour, and the site use fee is calculated according to the number of vehicles or the number of people involved in the filming, whichever results in the largest impact according to the chart on my next slide. So this chart provides the fee that will be charged depending on the number of vehicles or the number of people. As you can see, for a small film setup, it would be a $630 fee. For something fewer than 10 vehicles or 25 people, ranging from up to $5,000 for more than 51 vehicles and 126 people. The adoption of the proposed filming fees will encourage compliance with Cosca's Ordinance Section 241G, and that section is the one, and I'm sorry, I just lost my train of thought, which requires film permittees to restore, oh my goodness, I'm sorry. Shall return the land to the natural condition upon the completion of filming. Thank you. Sorry about that. And the adoption of the filming fees will avoid confusion that might result from adopting significantly different fees than those charged by CRPD. The staff recommends that the board adopt Resolution 2009-2, establishing the fee schedule for commercial filming and still photography on Cosca open space. I'm available for questions.
Questions in this support? Go ahead, Claudia.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions. The city recently discussed the film permit issue. That's a city completely separate. But I'm wondering, has there ever been any situation where there was open space filming close to residences where, what happens in such a case? I mean, which ordinance would apply?
I should point out that Ordinance Section 241C states that applicants must comply with all City of Thousand Oaks ordinances relating to filming and are responsible for obtaining all necessary city permits as required under those ordinances. So the ordinances overlap. So first you would need to obtain a city filming permit, and assuming that you comply with all the city ordinances, then you would also need to apply for a Cosca filming permit and go through our process as well.
Now, what if the location scout picks a location near endangered plants? Would that permit be issued?
In all cases, the staff has discretion to not approve the permit request. Staff will evaluate the planned filming location and the activities planned for the film shoot, and we'll determine whether or not those will be compatible with protection of the resources, adequate protection of the resources. So I would say it's probably likely that staff would not approve any film permit request for filming in areas with rare plants or other sensitive resources.
Anywhere where you have more than, when you have a shoot of more than 50 people, then undoubtedly there will be damage to the area done. Does staff feel that $1 million insurance will suffice given the danger of potential brush fires?
I do believe that we would require the studio to provide their own, for example, if the filming was going to use generators, as I think is sometimes done, that we would require them to provide their own fire marshal service for that as well. They would need to comply with any Ventura County Fire Protection District requirements for fire safety.
Is that in our ordinance? Is that in the ordinance that they require permit from the Ventura County Fire District?
I don't know if it requires a permit, but certainly they would have to comply with all fire safety regulations.
Or maybe
And under
one of-
subsection D of 241, which is in the packet, it does speak with addressing fire control as well.
Okay, very good. And so then staff is satisfied with the $1 million security bond.
That's a standard for our city as well.
Okay, I believe that would be it. Thank you.
Other comments or questions? Director Gibson?
Yeah, this is with regards to the still photography. And so, if I understand it, this is all still photography. If somebody wants to go out just for an hour sitting there with a photographer, they'd have to get this permit, pay the day fee. Is a ranger required? Or is that at the discretion of Cosca?
I think it would be at the discretion of staff. Certainly in applying for the permit, they would need to disclose exactly the locations they plan to shoot, and if it's one photographer and one person or just a couple people, it's likely that the impacts of that are no different from a general public user of open space. We certainly would not allow them to go off trail, as no other members of the public are, according, under our ordinances. So my guess is probably would not require ranger supervision, but it would be determined on a case-by-case basis.
Okay. I mean, I'm satisfied with it if it's not an automatic requirement, because again, my family just went out and had a setting. We didn't do it in Cosca. We didn't do it in the park. Did it on private property. It was 45 minutes, and you're in and out and done. And it's and I have seen, from various photographers, where they've done open space settings or whatever. And as long as it's not a strict requirement, if it's at the discretion of, the Cosca manager or whoever, then I could support these.
And it does say commercial.
Yes, and it is only for commercial filming, so a regular member of the public with their personal camera does not have to apply for a film permit.
Yeah, but I paid somebody to go out and take some.
That would apply, and I would say that in the example that you gave, no ranger supervision would have been required. It is.
Okay. So I got to tell Forrest Fields next time that he has to get a permit. So.
Other comments? And do we have a motion? Director Fox?
I'd move the recommendation of staff.
Seconded. Been moved and seconded. Any other discussion on the motion? All in favor of staff recommendation, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Any abstentions? That's unanimous. Thank you. All right. And now we are at the status report on the Conejo Canyons Management Study. That would be you, Ms. Austin?
Thank you, Chair Skay. I have a really short PowerPoint. This is just an update on what's going on with the Conejo Canyons Management Plan, and staff continues to write the text and develop exhibits for the draft management plan. The second public workshop is scheduled for 6 p.m. on September 30th, so please mark your calendars. Public notification for that workshop will be 2 weeks in advance, with the draft management plan posted on the websites. And let's see, the draft management plan is scheduled for presentation to the board on November 18th. And the public comment period will be from September 30th to October 30th, which will then give us ample time to integrate any public comments into the final draft before it's presented to the board. And I'm available for questions.
I did have a comment, and then I saw the closed session. My comment was in reference to the plethora of emails that we've received from Parmenter Estates regarding the issue of the property there, to whom it belongs, and trespassing and all that. Is that what the closed session will be about?
No.
No,
But
okay.
let me just stop you there as far as we are going to be discussing some issues involving property. But as far as comments on certain items that are not on the agenda, I would advise you not to discuss it at this time.
Okay, is that something that the board can discuss at the next meeting if the mediation fails? I'm just wondering, because it's been going on for a while, is that something we can put on the agenda for the next meeting?
Actually, the problem we have is this is not the agenda. You can't actually talk about it to even talk about putting it on the agenda for next time.
All right, then how do I get something on the agenda? Okay, I'm talking to staff ahead of time.
Right.
Good, thank you.
Yes, Director Fox.
I wasn't here, so I don't know exactly what was said about Elaine, but I did want to take a moment to congratulate her and thank her for many, many years of service to the community, and particularly the area what Cosca deals with. I've said it many, many times. Seems like every 2 years, folks come out of the woodwork and they use open space as a buzzword and kind of a punchline, but there's really a small group of folks, and I've said, if you really want to know who's involved with open space in Thousand Oaks, Conejo Valley, show up on every other Wednesday, because those are the folks that are truly committed over the years in blood, sweat, and tears for our open space program. And Elaine has certainly been one of those people. We have a lot of kids in this community that have been very blessed with her leadership, and adults alike, whether it's the Trail Education Day or the Trail Cleanup Day or the many other programs, or just quietly sitting at a Cosca meeting monitoring what the five of us are doing. I've been at this for 15 years now and been on Cosca the entire time, and it's the same folks that show up to the workshops and everything else. So to you personally, Elaine, thanks for your many years of service, and to many others who are, kind of the faceless crowd in our community, but really make a difference and roll up their sleeves and work hard for this resource that we have. And we're very, very fortunate to have folks, volunteers in this community. Exactly, unsung heroes, absolutely. And so, on behalf of, I thank many, many people. Thanks for all your efforts.
Hear, hear. Okay. We have a closed session, and Mr. Hare, would you read the announcement of the closed session, please?
Pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.8, we will move to closed session related to real property negotiations. Assessor parcel number 671030010. Negotiating party is Donald Jensen.
Okay, thank you. Well, we need to adjourn to the adjoining room.
No announcement, right?
No announcement. Okay.
The adjoining room?
I mean, when I said adjourn, well, we... Yeah.